I bonded deeply with my sister before she distanced herself, calling only when she needed money. A guy mirrored this, fading away too. Throughout my 20 years of existence, I have encountered only two individuals with whom I have experienced this almost otherworldly type of connection. The first is my eldest sister. We did not grow up together in the same household or city. Additionally, there is a 7-year age difference between us, which meant we rarely had meaningful interactions until 5 years ago. She went through some challenging times and ended up moving in with us, staying for about 3 years before leaving again. During our time together, we forged one of the most significant connections I believe I have ever had. I have other siblings with whom I grew up in the same house and with smaller age gaps, but interacting with her felt like one of those sisterly bonds you see in films. Of course, we sometimes had disagreements or became annoyed with each other, but it was never anything serious. To me, she was like a best friend. We shared an unusual sense of humor and had similar tastes in style and music. We frequently stayed up late discussing politics and conspiracy theories for hours. I often felt peculiar or like the odd one out, but she reassured me, helping me find confidence in my quirkiness and uniqueness. She made me feel as though I was not alone. Once she moved out, it felt as if she forgot about me and no longer cared. It was as if I were simply someone she had to tolerate while living with us, and once she was stable, I became something to leave behind. I would text her and send her Instagram reels and TikToks as we always did, but she wouldn't respond. I would call her, and she would answer just long enough for a brief conversation before saying she needed to go, promising to call me back, which she never did. The only time she would reliably reach out was when she needed money. She would ask for some, saying she would pay me back, and I would, of course, lend it to her. During those times, it felt as though our old dynamic was back. She would send me Instagram reels, and we would share discussions about celebrity gossip and current events, enjoying long conversations. These were the best parts of my day. Yet after about a week, we would revert to being strangers, waiting until she needed money again. Eventually, I stopped lending her money, and she stopped calling. About a year ago, I reached out, expressing how I felt we had grown distant. She explained that life had been chaotic, which I completely understood. We agreed to go out 2 weeks after our conversation, but the day before, I texted her to check in, asking if we were still on and letting her know I was willing to reschedule if necessary. She confirmed we were still on, but the next day, an hour before we were supposed to meet, she canceled, saying she was too tired. I understood completely, and we planned to go out the next week, which also never occurred. At that point, I simply stopped trying. I understand she has a life, and as she approaches 28 in 2 months, I realize she likely has more pressing priorities. I never expected to talk to her constantly, but her complete lack of communication will always linger in my mind. I know I shouldn't feel special, but I do. I was hurt by this situation for some time, not angry with her but with how things had turned out. She called me about 2 weeks ago for my birthday, marking the first time in years that she remembered it. I answered, and it felt so wonderful to talk to her. I have been going through a lot lately and feeling quite stressed, and speaking with her was incredibly comforting, even though she mostly shared updates about her life and her new partner. For the first time in a while, I felt tranquil. We only spoke for about 30 minutes, and we agreed to call each other back later that evening, which did not happen, as I anticipated. I later found out she had called me after our father reminded her to do so because it was my birthday, but frankly, I didn't mind. I was simply happy to have connected with her. The other person is a man I met around 2 years ago. We connected on a dating site and communicated through text for about a month before deciding to meet in person. I had been on other dates previously, but this one felt different. I was more comfortable than I had ever been on a first date. Afterward, we continued to talk and go on dates for several months. He is essentially the male version of me. We share quirks and a sarcastic sense of humor. I have never been around a guy with whom I could completely be myself without it feeling awkward. It felt surreal. However, we stopped communicating about 5 months after things began to become more serious. 5 months later, we resumed our communication. While things were different this time, it felt as if he was distant. He used to call me nearly every night, and we would talk for hours before going to sleep, but that changed. I assumed we just needed to readjust to one another after some time apart, especially since we had both become involved with other people. Months later, I realized I might have been in love with him. He seemed perfect to me. I admired him and who he is as a person. While we did not talk as frequently as I would have liked when we did, it was phenomenal. He felt like my therapist. I could be having an awful day and not want to be around anyone, but if I got on the phone with him, my entire mood would shift and I would forget about my bad day. His presence was calming. I shared my deepest insecurities with him, and he would always reassure and affirm me. Our relationship reminded me of my bond with my eldest sister. We would discuss religion, conspiracy theories, social issues, and even gut health, which may seem random but is genuinely engrossing. When I confessed my feelings of love for him, he stated he cared about me but wasn't ready for that commitment, which I accepted. I had never desired a relationship until him. I simply wanted him in my life, whether as friends or something more, as he is one of my favorite people to converse with, and our connection brings me joy. He agreed with this sentiment, but his actions did not reflect it. He rarely called, and when I reached out, he was nearly always busy. I expressed my desire to talk more and how I felt like he didn't genuinely like me but spoke to me out of convenience. He assured me he would take our connection more seriously and call more often, but that did not happen. Instead, the opposite occurred. We haven't communicated in 2 months. A few days ago, I called to wish him a happy birthday, and he mentioned he had been waiting for my call, which I found amusing since my birthday is 2 weeks before his, and he had not wished me well on mine. After saying that, he told me he would call me back later that night, which he never did. I have always had this uneasy feeling that he judged me and did not see me in the same light I saw him. I thought I might just be overthinking, and when I voiced these concerns, he would reassure me that I was mistaken, that he would never judge me, and that he respected me. Now, however, I question that. How can you say you care about me and think highly of me, yet not call or make an effort to see me? This situation mirrors my experience with my sister, making me wonder if I am the problem. Am I in the wrong for wanting more from these individuals? Why do I yearn for the affection of people who evidently do not prioritize me or care for me as deeply as I care for them? Story 2. My 26M girlfriend, 26F, just told me she cheated on me 6 years ago in college. We have been dating for 10 years. My girlfriend and I began our relationship in high school in 2015. We were each other's first partners, and I believed we would only be sexual partners, which I accepted. Afterward, we attended different colleges and embarked on a long-distance relationship, making an effort to see each other at least once a month. In the first month of college in 2016, she played a drinking game with friends and ended up kissing another person. She informed me the next day, and we discussed it. I was devastated, but after consulting with some friends, including hers, I chose to give her another chance, despite my belief that once a cheater, always a cheater. I understood that mistakes can occur, as I had witnessed many individuals making thoughtless choices in college. From that point on, our relationship experienced some challenges as we navigated long distances and worked to rebuild trust. She had male friends who concerned me, although she always insisted that they were merely friends. I was never worried about one in particular, as he was the least attractive member of the group and had previously had a brief relationship with her sister. I had numerous opportunities to be unfaithful if I had desired. There were several girls who were upset that I maintained friendships with them because they believed I might have feelings for them, but none meant more to me than friendship. Whenever girls made advances towards me, I politely declined and distanced myself from those situations. In 2019, I traveled through Europe with my brother and some friends for 6 weeks following my brother's graduation. During that time, she began to spend time with a girl, whom we shall call A, who had a reputation for being a bad influence and for cheating, according to my ex-girlfriend. While I was overseas, she and A were frequently together, going out, drinking, and partying. Naturally, our relationship became strained due to time zones and travel, and it was in a fragile state. One night, they went to a bar with several male friends. They subsequently both stayed at their place, and she assured me that she and A were sleeping together on an air mattress, so I trusted her. Fast forward 6 years, and our love has markedly developed. It has grown incredibly strong. We have matured as individuals, launched our professional careers, and moved in together in 2023, living a very happy life. However, something triggered my memory this past weekend while we were looking at engagement rings. As we were nearing home, I decided to ask her if she had cheated on me with those guys or anyone else. She swiftly denied it. Upon arriving home, she turned and admitted, "I cannot lie to you. I thought I could take this secret to the grave, but I love you so much that I can't." She proceeded to recount an incident from August 2019, explaining that she was drunk, they kissed, and one thing led to another, resulting in them sleeping together. She mentioned not recalling certain parts of that night, but remembers running out of the room naked, where I found her crying. She insisted it only happened once, which I do not believe. She cannot recall whether protection was used, and I need to determine if I need to get tested for sexually transmitted diseases. However, when I reviewed our texts from that night, which I rarely delete, I found that she was able to communicate clearly and without any spelling errors, providing me updates on her whereabouts and how everyone was doing throughout the evening. She did not seem overly drunk over text, contrary to her claims. The morning after, she even had the audacity to text me, expressing how much she missed me and how excited she was for my return from my trip. She returned home after that night, claiming she burned all her clothes, got tested for sexually transmitted diseases, and visited her gynecologist. She stated that she recognized she had made a mistake and that she wanted only me. Looking back at my texts again, I noticed she continued to be friends with the guy for over 6 months afterward, sitting between him and in class, and still participating in group outings to bars, etc. During this entire period, she portrayed it as though he and I had a history together and that she was merely trying to maintain peace. In March 2020, during the COVID-19 lockdown, she ceased contact with both of them and unfollowed him on all social media at least. That is the last time she mentioned him and the last picture she liked on his Instagram. Was she perhaps attempting to escape her past? Returning to the present, I ended the relationship immediately when she shared this information, and she admitted this was why she didn't want me to discover the truth. She understood that had she told me back then, I would have ended things then too. I responded that just as cheating was her choice, what followed with our relationship was not solely her decision. She made her choice, and I deserved to make mine. It was unfair for her to allow us to fall in love and develop a relationship knowing she had been unfaithful to me. I discreetly contacted the other guy to hear his perspective. He stated they slept together one night after the bar while both were drunk. He claimed nothing further occurred between them, and they never discussed that night again, though they still socialized as they were part of the same program. I am uncertain whether I have made the best or worst decision of my life by ending our relationship, but time will reveal the answer. I told her that I see no point in even considering reconciliation. In my view, a single kiss is one thing, but sleeping with someone is a far more significant issue, particularly since she was already on her second chance. How can I trust that she isn't concealing other incidents with different people? I harbor doubts about ever trusting her again, so why should I waste my time? She professed she would do anything to be with me, offering to attend therapy. She said she would wait for me if I wished to date other women because she did not believe she would ever love or connect with anyone as profoundly as she does with me. Essentially, she indicated she would be fine with a one-sided open relationship, allowing me to explore other options, hoping I might return to her one day. She expressed a willingness to do whatever it takes, including therapy. I find that hard to swallow, especially considering that during our relationship, things were tough, and even when I was merely away for 6 weeks, she ended up cheating. How can she expect me to believe she would now be faithful for years to someone no longer in her life, who may never come back, and who is dating other women? I have noticed significant positive changes in her since 2020. It feels like an eye for an eye to me and a waste of time, as I wonder what type of relationship would emerge afterward. I fear that our relationship would become overly controlling, with me constantly monitoring her behavior, which would be toxic. I believe that we would both cultivate resentment toward each other after everything was said and done. In summary, my girlfriend of 10 years confessed she cheated on me 6 years ago while we were shopping for engagement rings. I ended the relationship, and she is now expressing her willingness to do anything for us to reunite. Story 3. Aita for telling my fiancé about my past. I am using a throwaway account for obvious reasons. On the 14th, I, 26 years old, male, decided to take my fiancé, 23 years old, female, out for a Valentine's dinner at her favorite local restaurant. The food is incredibly expensive, but fortunately, I have a good job and I have saved enough to treat her. Luckily, we were able to arrive just before the restaurant became fully booked. About an hour later, we finished our meals and were preparing to leave. That is when I noticed a familiar face. I saw someone I knew from middle school sitting at a round table with 3 other men, so I chose to go greet him. My fiancée asked what I was doing, and I simply told her I wanted to speak to an old acquaintance. She did not say anything and followed my lead. I approached the man and tapped him on the shoulder. When he turned to look at me, I could definitely recognize him, even from a distance. I will not mention any names, but he was someone I used to bully along with my friends. We teased him for being skinny and eccentric, which I realize was a cruel move, but he didn't help his situation by acting strange, either. Apparently, we crossed a line and he had to relocate to another state, but I thought it would be nice to catch up since it had been over 12 years. I assumed he would have moved on, but I was mistaken. He looked at me, and his smile vanished instantly. I knew he recognized me as well. Ironically, his appearance had changed drastically. Gone were the days of his messy hair and acne-ridden face. His hair was now neatly trimmed and slicked back, and there wasn't a single blemish on his skin. Moreover, he was very well dressed alongside his friends, possibly business partners. I am not sure. I reintroduced myself and inquired if he remembered me. He replied, "Yes, I do. Now, if you don't mind, I would like to return to my meal." He dismissed me and resumed his conversation with his friends, who also regarded me strangely after his comment but soon ignored me. I took offense, feeling overlooked when I was merely trying to be polite. I tapped his shoulder again, and this time he shot me an annoyed look. I asked how he had been, what was new in his life, and the usual pleasantries one exchanges when catching up. He raised his voice slightly and said, "Oh, I have been fine. In fact, I've been so much better since you left my life and stopped making it miserable by mocking me in school." The table fell silent, and I could sense my fiancé giving me an uncomfortable glance. I attempted to laugh it off, saying, "Oh, come on, that was 12 years ago. I thought you would have moved past it by now." I was about to suggest a drink and getting together sometime, but he promptly interrupted me and stood up, confronting me face to face. I must admit, I was taken aback. He was no longer the skinny, awkward kid. He had grown taller, more toned, and even in his suit, I could tell he had developed muscles. Then, he launched into a tirade about the suffering and trauma I had caused him, how hard he had to work to overcome it, and that I had no right to behave as if nothing had happened. This created a scene, attracting the attention of others, and I noticed my fiancé pulling on my sleeve, trying to urge me to leave. He locked eyes with me and in a threatening tone said if I did not leave immediately, he would beat me up in front of my girlfriend. His companions at the table also stood up, not to defuse the situation but to glare at me with crossed arms, as if they were prepared to back him up. He warned me, saying, "Seriously, I better not see you again, or I won't be as forgiving next time." I was furious that this man-child was threatening me in front of my fiancé and was determined to confront him, but she stepped in between us, pleading for us to leave. Although I was reluctant to let him off the hook, the attention we were drawing and the fact that staff was being summoned convinced me to be the bigger person and exit before things escalated. As I departed, I looked back to see him still glaring at me as the staff approached him to inquire about the situation. We reached the car, and my heart raced with anger. My fiancé got into the car without speaking. I turned to her and asked if she was all right, but she raised her hand to silence me, telling me to save it for when we got home. I acquiesced and drove us back to our apartment. Once inside, she immediately began interrogating me, arms crossed, about whether what he said was true. I told her it was not a big deal and urged her to let it go. She pressed me again and threatened to leave right then and there if I was not truthful. I finally admitted that, yes, what he said had some truth, but he had exaggerated certain aspects and that it had happened a long time ago and was irrelevant. She became upset and confronted me, asking how I could have acted that way and why I concealed it from her, especially considering her abusive past. I told her she was overreacting, emphasizing that I was a teenager at the time and didn't fully comprehend my actions. This sparked a major argument, and after what felt like an hour of shouting, she retreated to the bedroom and began packing a bag. I asked her what she was doing, and she informed me that she couldn't bear to look at me at that moment and needed to reconsider our relationship. I grew angry and questioned whether she was seriously willing to throw away 5 years of our relationship over something foolish from my past. She looked at me in disbelief and went outside to call her sister. I attempted to stop her, but she yelled at me to get out of the way. Living in a relatively small complex meant that our neighbors likely heard our shouting, and I wanted to avoid involving the police, so I stepped aside. She waited in the living room, and I tried to calm her down, suggesting we find solutions to make this work and overcome the situation. However, she remained silent and wouldn't even look at me. I knelt down and attempted to take her hands, but she jerked them away immediately. A few minutes later, her sister arrived, and she left without uttering a word. A few hours later, my phone began buzzing with messages from her family and friends, stating that she had shared what transpired and labeled me an awful person. Her friends had never liked me, so I was indifferent to their opinions. However, her family's reaction deeply hurt me, as I had worked hard to earn their trust and approval, only for them to completely turn against me. Her parents expressed that had they known what kind of terrible person I was, they would have never given their blessing for our relationship. I also updated my family and friends about the situation. My parents sided with me, arguing that my past shouldn't dictate my present, but my friends were divided. Some remained neutral, while others expressed disbelief that I did not consider myself at fault. They even mentioned needing to reconsider their friendships with me. It has been 4 days, and she still refuses to respond to any of my calls or texts, even leaving them on read. I fail to understand why any of this should jeopardize our engagement. I truly love her and want to demonstrate that I am a good person, and my past mistakes should not define who I am. I genuinely do not believe I am in the wrong, but her reactions and her family's disappointment leave me feeling conflicted. Am I the asshole? Story 4. My GF, F27, and I, M27, are losing our minds. Has anyone ever been long-term harassed by an ex? How did it affect your relationship? How did it end? She is not even my former partner. We dated briefly about 2 years ago, perhaps we went on 6 or 7 dates in total. Now she appears determined to sabotage my current relationship. I would like to know if anyone else has experienced something similar. How did it unfold? Hearing about others' experiences and how they managed their situations would provide me with some solace. In summary, a girl I casually dated for a brief period has been harassing my girlfriend and my girlfriend's family through anonymous accounts, making various outrageous and slanderous claims. I finally figured out it was her after she accused me of getting her pregnant and needing an abortion, which prompted me to call her out on her behavior. Yet the harassment continues. I have sent her a cease and desist email. For those interested in the complete background, please bear with me. Over 2 years ago, a few months after I, male, 27, had just ended a relationship, I began dating a girl, female, 27, I met on Tinder. Let's refer to her as B. B was pleasant, friendly, seemed cool, and showed interest in me. Everything seemed fine, but something in my heart suggested I did not want to pursue a serious relationship with her. During our first date, B inquired about my intentions, and I made it clear I was not in a rush to become serious. She immediately responded that she felt the same way. I was focused on a significant personal project and barely had time for a relationship. We were never exclusive. Eventually, after about 2 months, seeing her perhaps once a week, I gently expressed to B that I did not envision this evolving into a serious relationship. She appeared sad but said she would be fine with us continuing to meet casually. I saw her a couple of times after that, but then I gradually let things fizzle out to concentrate on myself. To clarify, I could not have communicated my feelings more gently and clearly. I did not want to be a player. The last time I spoke to B in person was in a park I often visited, where I encountered her. I did not think much of it at the time, perhaps it was simply coincidence. However, every time I returned to that park, there she was. I would be sitting on the grass with friends, on a date, or by myself reading, and I'd feel her gaze on me. I would look over and see her watching from the path, wearing sunglasses and a hat. She would also walk by in the opposite direction, even though she had never crossed my path before. A few months later, I met another girl, 27, who eventually became my current long-term partner. I was very cautious with her, but unlike with B, everything felt right. One day, I mentioned to her a random Instagram burner account that did not follow me but viewed all my stories. My girlfriend revealed that the same account was monitoring her stories. Later, I discovered another friend of mine, a girl, had the same account watching her stories. We playfully attempted to figure out the identity of the account, trying to log in and revealing the last few digits of the phone number. I didn't believe it matched anyone I knew. Then B texted me, asking how I was. I recognized it as her number. Now onto the troubling part. A few months later, I met my girlfriend's mother for the first time, and it went well. She posted a story featuring me and their family dog. The following day, she received an anonymous message from a different burner account. The message accused me of being a liar, a cheater, and a manipulator, alleging that I got someone pregnant, was cheating during certain months, and was still using dating apps among other absurd accusations. Thankfully, these claims were so bizarrely specific that they could easily be disproven, and since the person wasn't revealing their identity, both my girlfriend and her mother concluded the claims were false. Nevertheless, I was extremely stressed, having no idea who would perpetrate such behavior or why. Fortunately, nothing else occurred for months, and I assumed it was an isolated incident. Fast forward to Thanksgiving, when my girlfriend made a post expressing gratitude for various things, including me. She gasped suddenly at her phone, showing me a comment from yet another burner account that read, "Grateful for the boyfriend who cheated on you during the first 3 months of your relationship." Once again, the accusations were so specific that I could easily disprove them. However, the fact that this was no longer an isolated incident and that this one was public caused significant distress. Although my girlfriend has been incredibly trusting throughout this situation, I cannot shake the feeling that this individual is successfully instilling doubt in her mind. Fast forward to the day before New Year's Eve. I received a lengthy message from B, claiming that the last time we were together, despite her being on birth control, I had gotten her pregnant. She asserted that she had to undergo an abortion, was deeply angry with me, and needed to express her feelings after all this time. Naturally, I was confused as to why she had never informed me in the first place. I would have gladly supported her through that experience. At this point, it became clear to me who was behind the anonymous messages. All the pieces fell into place. I replied, saying in summary, that I was sorry about her abortion experience, but it was completely unacceptable for her to direct her anger at me by involving my girlfriend and particularly her mother. She vehemently denied any involvement, but everyone could see she was the perpetrator. Nevertheless, I believed this was the conclusion of the matter. It was not. Fast forward to yesterday, when my girlfriend received an email from a fake account using the name of a girl I know, whom I have never dated or had any involvement with. The email claimed that I was reaching out to her with the intention of wanting to hook up, stating that I was in an open relationship and that I had given her HPV. My girlfriend read this, while already dealing with her own difficulties, and understandably lost her composure with me. I have also discovered that my picture has been posted in a Facebook group titled, "Are We Dating the Same Guy?" she inquired, anonymously, though it was painfully obvious it was her. Any tea on my name? We talked about a year ago and he randomly ghosted. He messaged me again recently, and I just wanted to see if there's anything I should know. Now she is searching for any concrete information she can use against me. Clearly, no one engaged with it because I haven't done anything wrong. It has become evident to me that B is completely unhinged and is actively trying to destroy my relationship with my girlfriend. These are not merely emotional outbursts. These are calculated attacks on my character designed to sow doubt and create conflict in my life. Although my girlfriend and I are both remaining resilient, this situation is undeniably taking a toll on us. I sent her a cease and desist letter via email on Friday afternoon. No response. Perhaps she has not seen it yet. I do not know, but this has been incredibly stressful for me. Once again, has anyone experienced something similar? How did it resolve? Story 5. My mom and grandma rejected my sister after she told us she has a girlfriend. I can tell she's hurt, but I don't know how to support her. This is an extended post, so prepare yourself for some family tension. I have attempted to express my thoughts as clearly as possible despite English not being my first language. I hope it isn't too convoluted. For background, my sister has never discussed her romantic life previously, and she has always been single in my eyes. Recently, my older sister brought a girl home one day. It didn't seem strange since she often hangs out with her friends, so I merely greeted them and gave them some privacy. However, I became curious later when I noticed them lying together on her bed watching a show, yet I chose to ignore it. On Valentine's Day, she arrived home with a stunning bouquet of sunflowers, and I must confess that it stirred something within me. I am very protective of my sister, so it pained me to see such an obvious romantic gesture aimed at her, even though it was genuinely a lovely gift. I recognize that these sentiments may be somewhat immature, but we have always shared a close bond, making it difficult for me to accept that someone else might hold a special place in her life now. Nonetheless, we are not the types to exchange personal or emotional thoughts with one another, so I simply complimented her on the flowers without inquiring about their source. Later that night, my mom and sister were discussing my grandmother and how she had asked my sister who sent the bouquet. That was when I realized it had come from that woman. It seems my grandmother did not handle the situation well and shot my sister a disapproving look. Coincidentally, her 90th birthday was just a few days away, and my sister was contemplating how to break the news to her. "What should I tell her?" my mom asked. "That we're together," my sister replied nonchalantly, thereby making their relationship official. I believe my sister trusted my mom enough not to fret over her reaction, expecting that she would assist her in confronting our grandmother's probable homophobia as an elderly, Catholic woman. However, I possessed insights about our mother that my sister did not. Back in middle school, when I revealed to her that I was asexual, she raised her voice at me, insisting, "No, no, no, you don't understand what you're saying. It's the influence of those shows your sister enjoys." It was true that my sister exposed me to a range of queer media while growing up. My sister, mother, and I used to watch RuPaul's Drag Race together, so until that point, I was under the impression that my mom was tolerant. Even though I later stopped identifying as asexual, that moment imparted a lasting message. My mother is hypocritical. I love her, but she acts accepting until it involves someone within our family. After that incident, I found it impossible to trust her in the same way. I can easily envision how my sister must have felt upon receiving such a response from her supposedly accepting mother right after coming out. "I will always love you, but I am a conservative woman, and I am unsure how long it will take me to process this news." It was similar to that. I refused to reread it, as it pains me to think she could be so unkind to my sister. Afterwards, she seemed to ignore her completely. Betrayed. That is likely how my sister felt. At least I have always been aware of this side of our mother, but I can only imagine how much more difficult it must have been for my sister, who had a different perception of our mother well into her 30s. When she came out, I remained silent. Honestly, I was left utterly speechless and somewhat bitter because I had never considered that someone could take her away from me. Therefore, I acted as I always had to demonstrate that this fact would not alter our relationship. She seemed so nonchalant about it, so I presumed it was acceptable to be nonchalant too. However, when she shared how our mom reacted, I could tell that her demeanor had shifted. She no longer felt secure. Even if my grandmother wasn't fully certain, my sister realized that she disapproved from the unpleasant look she received. Yesterday, I finally observed her indifferent facade begin to crack. She sounded genuinely upset and a bit melancholic when discussing my grandmother's party. My sister had intended to hire musicians for the celebration, but after this reaction, she feels compelled to organize a party for someone who no longer loves her. She had even contemplated inviting her girlfriend, but that plan was understandably scrapped. I am the sole family member who knows, apart from my mother. Her reaction was terrible, and she only communicates with my sister to maintain the pretense that everything is all right with the rest of our family. Even though some days have passed, I believe it is essential for me to stop acting so neutrally, as I worry my sister might think I am indifferent to her feelings. The truth is, I have continued to interact with my mother, as I always have since all of this unfolded. I hug her and address her affectionately, all the while understanding that my sister must feel unhappy witnessing this, knowing she can no longer approach our mother in that manner. Yet, that is how I responded when she rejected me. Still, I wish I could advocate for my sister in a way I didn't do for myself. However, there are numerous factors at play that leave me fearful. First, if I confront my mother, or even begin to treat her coldly, she'll realize my sister shared their conversation and become even more offended with her. Second, if I make a spectacle of it and fight for her, I could inadvertently force my sister into an uncomfortable situation and inadvertently reveal her relationship to the rest of the family. Third, I ponder whether it might be more beneficial to simply provide support for her pain. However, there lies an issue: I am emotionally unavailable. I genuinely do not know how to engage with her feelings. She is often quite cold, and we have never been the type to comfort each other. So it physically pains me to attempt being personal. It might be appropriate to say something like, "Hey, I love you. No matter what they say, I will always support you." But I can't help but cringe at the mere thought. Nevertheless, I would be willing to overcome my fear of affection and the selfishness I feel regarding needing to share her time with her girlfriend if it means she can attain happiness. Tomorrow is my grandmother's birthday, and I am certain my sister will feel quite sad. I believe I need to figure out how to help her navigate the day. Edit. I forgot to mention that she plans to move out of the house as soon as possible since she no longer feels welcome here.